or as we like to say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to each and all of you today, to all that you bring with you, all of your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, all that make you who you are is embraced here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. And this includes those who might be joining us for the first time and hearing this for the first time today. This is a church where you don't have to fall in line. I'll be speaking about that, in fact, in a little while. But welcome to you all. Welcome to those of you who are streaming with us as well. We're always grateful to know that you're with us. Good morning, and thanks for being here. We're going to greet one another in just a couple of moments. We've got kind of a full Sunday morning here, but I wanted to actually let a couple of folks say some things to you before we move forward. So first, I want to invite the director of our Children and Family Ministry, Aria Curtis, forward for an important appeal.
Good morning. I am here this morning to submit a plea. We do not have enough adults signed up to facilitate RE this fall to do RE. Not just to have a full and thriving program for our children and youth, but to do it at all. So I highly encourage you to consider it. Doing RE with our children and youth is not just fun, exciting, hanging out. It is an act of courage and hope and faith for the future, full of compassionate, thoughtful people. It is about the survival of Unitarian Universalism. So please come find me in the back after the service. I'm happy to answer any of your questions about what it means to facilitate RE. I have descriptions of all of the programs we'll be doing this fall, as well as a sign-up sheet. Thank you.
Thank you, Aria. And you are going to be seeing a new face around here on Sundays for quite some time. You probably remember from our last annual meeting that we spoke about hiring a membership coordinator. Well, we have done so, thanks to our excellent personnel team. We had, I think about 60 candidates altogether, or 82 applications. I don't know if we told Diane that. So Diane, you really, had a lot of competition. But Diane Critchlow is our new membership coordinator. She'll be here some during the week, but also on Sundays helping us out. So I wanted to give her just a brief opportunity to come up and introduce herself to you and tell you a little bit about herself. So Diane, welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here this morning. After that 9 o'clock sermon, I was about ready to jump up and say, yes. But I know that I'm in the right place. I, too, am a truth seeker, and that brought me here and to your warm community. And I'm so excited to be able to serve and be a part of such a warm and loving group of people. And I just want to thank the committee, thank the pastor, and everything that you do here and everything that you stand for. So I'm just excited to be able to serve and to be here. So again, thank you, and I look forward to meeting each of you. And you're right, you're going to see my face around here quite a bit. So again, thank you for your warm welcome into this great community. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you, Diane. It's an honor to have you. We've got a full service today. Lots of special things going on. So let's go ahead and take just a few minutes to greet one another. I'm going to cut you kind of short though, but go ahead, get to it, quick. Okay, thank you. And as always, there will be lots more opportunity to visit with one another during our social hour immediately following the service. So I hope that you will stick around for that. And we're going to be having cake today too, helping to celebrate some of those who have been here for 50 years that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. But for now, we're going to light our chalice, as always, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Our opening reflection this morning is a poem I wrote in 2009 in response to an African proverb about truth. And truthfully, unfortunately, I have lost track of that original proverb, so we'll just have to go with my poem. It's called The Truth. The small truth is a pebble in the road. A big truth is a road paved with such pebbles. One can stub one's toe, dislodge a truth, trip on it, be annoyed if it journeys in your shoe, changing the measure of your gait. Even a small truth is worth noticing. One can keep a pebble of truth in the mouth to stave off thirst, but do not swallow it, for the truth must be spit out like a kernel or seed to be planted before us, for we are truly nourished by truth.
I think this hymn is a favorite of ours here. It comes from 1 Corinthians. Would you please stand as you're willing and able to sing, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
Ages. Great, there we go. So if all ages would come to the front of the room, no, not all of you, but those who would like, hey, how are you? Good to see you. The story's happening here, buddy, not over there. I'm just teasing. You sit however you want. Hey, good to see all of you. So I've got to tell you, I'm a little embarrassed because, I usually like to bring a puppet to help, and I got kind of in a hurry this morning. I even brought, look at this brand new puppet stand I made just for the day and forgot the puppet. And that's because I got a call early this morning that some mice had been spotted in the church. Some pretty big mice. And so I rushed over with some mouse traps and set them around, down in the basement and in the back storage room. I even put one under the pulpit. But anyway, so I forgot a puppet. So today I'm just going to tell a story, if that's okay. Is that all right? Okay, so did you hear a snap? You heard a snap? I did too. I think I'm going to check under the pulpit just to see. Oh, no. Oh, my gosh. We got a mouse, all right, and it is a big one. Woo. I don't think I've seen a mouse quite this big before. But what do you know? Wait a minute. I think I know this mouse. Let me get that off your ear. Aren't you Pluto? Pluto? No, you're not Pluto. I know you. You're Goofy. No, you're not Goofy. I know exactly who you are. You're Donald Duck. No, you're not Donald Duck. I know who you are. This happens to just be the most famous mouse, perhaps, in history. This is, wait a minute. Come here. What? Yeah, that's a camera, okay? Yes, we are live right now. No, we don't have a license from Disney to use its characters. Wait, I got it. Come here. Brilliant idea. I'd like to introduce you today to my friend, Mackie Mouse. Hello, boys and girls. It's good to see you. Thank you, Mackie. So listen, you're right in time for a story I was going to tell. Is that okay? Sure, I'm all ears. So the story has to do with my sermon later. I'm going to be talking about a story called The Emperor's New Clothes. You know that one? The Emperor's New Clothes? I like new clothes. You could use some new clothes. So anyway, here's how it goes. Once upon a time, there was a conceited emperor who the only thing he cared about was looking good. So a trickster came to town and promised to make him the best suit of clothes ever. He said, they're going to be great. Believe me, they'll be great. So the emperor gladly gave all the kingdom's gold in exchange for the greatest clothes on earth. But when the trickster showed him the fabric he was going to make the clothes out of, he couldn't see anything. And the trickster quickly explained that only the wisest and smartest people could see the cloth. Well, not wishing to appear to be a foolish emperor, the emperor said, of course I can see it. So the trickster got to work, pretended to make some clothes and put them on the emperor, and next thing you know, the emperor is marching down the street completely naked. Wait a minute, I can only do G-rated stories. Okay, well, completely naked except for the undergarments he had on. There, that's good. So he was marching down the street in his underwear, essentially. And everybody was looking, and nobody wanted to appear to be unwise or foolish either, so everybody pretended to see the clothes. Oh, what wonderful clothes. Oh, they're so beautiful, they said. They're the most magnificent clothes I've ever seen, even though the emperor was completely naked. Except for the pajamas. Yes, except for his pajamas that he was wearing. So anyway, as he's continuing on, people are commenting about how great the clothes are. Finally, one brave little child, about your age, right, about your age, said, wait a minute, the emperor has no clothes, except for the pajamas. So the emperor heard and knew that the child was right, but didn't want to appear to be even more foolish than he already was, so he just kept pretending that he had on a magnificent suit of clothes, and so did everybody else in the crowd. The end. Now, do you know what the moral of the story is, Mackie? Do you know what the moral of the story is? Never go out without your pajamas. Never go out with your pajamas. But there's another moral too. What do you think it is, Alex? Don't be afraid to tell the truth, even if everyone else believes something different. Perfect. Oh, you guys are so good. Mickey, that wraps it up for Mackie. I'm sorry, Disney, I didn't mean it. Would you please tell everybody goodbye so we could... Sure. N-I-C... Oh, no. See you real soon. Please, you don't have to continue. K-E-Y... Oh, gosh. Why? Because I like you. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's enough. N-O-U-S-E. Thank you very much. Well, let's hope we don't catch any more mice today. So we are going to have an important time during our service. We don't get to do this very often, to celebrate what is really a major milestone of membership in any organization, but particularly a major milestone for our church community. We have actually 4 members to honor today for 50 years of membership in this church. So I'm going to ask all 4 of them to come forward. Stephanie's going to get a picture of them, and they're all going to get exactly 1 minute to say a little something. But those are Barbara Augusta, Bill Powell, and Dave and Millie Roberts. If you would please come forward. You want to get their picture first, Stephanie? Up here? Okay. Come right up here. Just a little bit, Bill. There we go. I'm going to get one too. Don't move. We get 1 minute to take pictures too. Hey, Mickey Mouse. Okay, Bill, would you like to start since you're closest to the microphone there?
All right. We moved to Spokane in the summer of 1956. And prior to that, my wife, Ann, and I had been going to the University of Washington. We decided that we wanted to come to a smaller city because commuting in Seattle is not my idea of a way to spend your day. And that's about what you wind up doing. And if you live there, we need to understand my then mother-in-law was saved at a Presbyterian church sometime prior to that time, and she was real touchy as to where we went to church. So we didn't have, frankly, we'd gone to the Unitarian Church for a number of times in Seattle while we lived there, and we felt at home there. And but when we came here, we went to a Methodist church which had a liberal preacher. And we went there probably a couple of years or so, and then the preacher left, went to wherever the place is where you take your instruction, and became a Unitarian minister. And having run out of sources, we went down to greet Rudy Gilbert and the class of, I have no idea what year it was. It was about 1960, thereabouts. Anyway, we liked it and we stayed. And the fact was that back in those days, the Unitarians didn't press asking people to join. And I have no idea how many years it was, but anyway, we eventually did join. We got up our courage to face the mother-in-law, and we did, and surprisingly, she didn't give us as much trouble as we expected. So it all worked out great, and I'm very happy that we joined this church, and it's turned out to be one of the things that we do. And we've been happy here. It's probably 55 years or thereabouts. But anyway, what the number is, you've been a nice bunch to be friends with, and I hope we can spend a few more. Thank you.
Well, I was instructed that we had 5 minutes, so, and believe me, you're lucky that restriction was put on us. It's amazing to see a whole room full of people sitting so quietly and attentively, listening without interruption. I hang out with a bunch of pretty big talkers, and in our group, you're lucky to get out a complete sentence before you have 2 or 3 responses filling the gap where you tried to take a breath. So this is kind of a thrill to just have people paying such close attention. I'd like to start by reading a text message that I sent to my daughter a couple of days ago when I was trying to organize my thoughts for today. Dear Jennifer, I am just realizing that this Sunday will be quite a special day for me. I am being picked up by Wayne Atwood to be honored at the UU Church as a 50-year member. Of course, I first attended the church 72 years ago with Gammy and joined formally somewhere in the mid-50s. I'm supposed to give a short 5-minute speech. It will be difficult for me to limit myself to 5 minutes to cover thoughts and feelings related to this church over such a long period, but I will do my best. It would be very embarrassing if they had to skip the sermon because I was unable to conform to the limits, which I know a lot of you expect me not to be able to do. Wish me luck. Love, Mom. So as I mentioned, I first attended the Unitarian Church in Spokane in 1945 with my grandmother. We called her Gammy, but her real name was Salome Augusta Minter. What a handle. She was born just after the end of the Civil War and was a teacher, a suffragette, a free thinker, and a wonderful, best of all, she was a wonderful influence in my life and a beloved grandmother. John Brogdon was the minister at that time, and I don't know if there's anybody here who remembers John Brogdon, but there are probably a couple of people. Marion might remember John. He was a minister at that time, and also in 1953, when Roy Perringer and I were married in the Glover House. We were very active members in the church for many years, and Roy was a key member of the team that built the lovely chapel that was our UU home for many years. Or maybe it was just Unitarian home at that time. We had 3 children, Pamela, Peter, and Jennifer, who were dedicated in that chapel. In 1975, when Roy died, Jennifer performed a memorial concert in that chapel. Sadly, 10 years later, my son Peter died, and we held a memorial service for him in the Glover House. From even this abbreviated history, you can see that this church has been important in my life from very early on. Many of my lifetime friendships were formed here. We spent many Christmases with Carl Maxey as our Santa Claus. After my divorce, 5 years before Roy's death, I spent a number of years away from Spokane and got out of the habit of attending church. But I have maintained my membership and support and have always considered this my religious home. Currently, I'm living at Rockwood South Hill Retirement Community, and some of you are here, where there's kind of a hotbed of Unitarian Universalists up there, as you may know, and we meet for a special dinner once a month. It's kind of like going off to college with a bunch of friends. It's great. I want to express my deep appreciation for this special recognition. I really had no idea how much it was going to mean to me. It has caused me to focus on how important the church has been to me personally through all the years, and going forward has renewed my commitment to supporting its contributions to the larger community. Thank you very much.
Dave and I grew up in Yakima, but we were living in the Washington, D.C. area at the time that we became Unitarians at the Unitarian Church in Arlington, Virginia. So when we moved to Spokane in October of 1966, one of the first things we did was to seek out this church, and I'll never forget our very first day. We were met at the door by Jeanette. Some of you remember Jeanette. Jeanette was a tortured soul. She had been in and out of Eastern State Hospital. And Rudy and Alma Gilbert were so caring and loving of her and so supportive. But Jeanette was in front of the chapel door. She had a very short haircut, really a man's haircut, and she was wearing a long red dress and smoking a cigar. And she was there pumping everyone's hand, welcoming us. When we got inside, Alma Gilbert recognized immediately that we were new, and she came over, was so warm and gracious, and she introduced us to this short, plump little lady who was wearing a black and white zebra striped coat, matching hat, with a strong German accent, and it was Catherine Gellhorn. And then that same day, although we didn't meet him, but we were aware of him, there was this man in the congregation. Now remember, this was October, who was wearing very short, cut-off shorts, shoes, regular dress shoes, not tennis shoes, with no socks, and a very brief T-shirt, and that was Walt Kick. So we didn't get to know Jeanette well, but we did become good friends with Catherine and Walt, treasured their friendships for many, many years. This church has been a real home for us. I think it has made the difference, the quality of our lives here in Spokane.
As Millie mentioned, we came here from Washington, D.C., and was going to graduate school in Washington, D.C., and those were really heady times in D.C. It was a time of John Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and the race riots back there. And it felt like when we were living there that the whole world revolved around Washington, D.C. And it was very exciting for two young people. Well, we came to Spokane, and that was a real transition for us because the world. I know many of you probably don't agree, but the world does not revolve around Spokane. So it was a real transition for us, and this church really helped us to adapt to Spokane, and we've maintained very close friends. Our closest friends are in this church, and it's been an experience for over 50 years. And we're really pleased that we were in the church and we saw a lot of the ups and downs, and that's really a lifelong journey. But we're really pleased because in the last 6 years, we think that the church is really on an upward movement, and we're very pleased, and we're just so pleased and excited about the ministerial Todd here, and we think that's in the future. And even though we have been here 50 years and we've been very active in the church, we will continue to add our shoulder in moving forward. And we're just so pleased, and thank you so very much for being such an important part of our lives.
We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
Thank you so much. And between all of the mousetraps and all the other surprises this morning, I forgot to give a special welcome to Dixie, who we always love having with us. Thank you so much. And congratulations and even thank you to those of you who've been with us for 50 years. That's such an incredible achievement, and you really probably should have each gotten a whole service to share your story. But instead, we're going to give you a name on a plaque. So hopefully that will suffice. But anyway, it truly is wonderful to have you and hear your stories. Thank you so much. We're going to edit our service a little bit, just so we don't have you here all afternoon. And I'm going to ask Brian, who's going to do our special music, to prepare to do that. But first, we do want to kindle our candles of care. So once we're done with that, Brian, if you want to go ahead and start, that would be great. Yeah. No, you don't have to speed the tempo up or anything. You could, I know. Don't shortchange yourself. We want to hear your whole thing. But there were just a few candles of care I definitely wanted to mention. Some of you may have heard that longtime church member Susan Whaley's son's bipolar disorder led to his taking his own life a couple of days ago. And Susan asked that I let you know and that you keep her and her entire family in your thoughts at what is a very difficult time for them. And of course, a candle for everyone suffering in the aftermath of the racial violence in Charlottesville yesterday. I don't think there's a circle small enough to draw around those that are included in that candle of care, so we'll just do the whole hoop of the earth. And then we do have a candle of celebration, some good news. I just got a text this morning that Tom and Mary Mosier on this very day are celebrating their 51st wedding anniversary, so congratulations to you. So let's take just a brief moment of silence on behalf of others that might be on our thoughts, and you'd be welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion.
Going to do a song right now that I hope our president, or this guy that acts as our president, might abide by. That would be nice. When you is gonna keep you from flying. Always stay humble and kind. Know the difference between sleeping with someone, yeah, sleeping with someone that you love. I love you and never be a pick of mine. So always stay humble and kind. So open doors, stay peace and thank you. Never cheat, never steal, never lie. There's gonna be mountains to climb. So always stay humble and kind. When those dreams that you're dreaming come to you, when your work is finally realized, hold your pride deep inside and always stay humble and kind. You know when it's hot, eat a blueberry popsicle. Turn off your AC and roll the windows down. Let the summer sun shine. Always stay humble and kind. Don't take for granted the love this life has given you. When you get where you're going, don't forget to turn around and help the next one in line. It's always stay humble and kind.
Thank you so much, Brian. And my goodness, during those candles of care, Patty, if you're still watching, I am sorry I forgot to mention this earlier, but Patty Tyler is turning 80 tomorrow on August 13th. So, and I understand you're streaming with us, and I'm sorry I forgot to put it on my list, but I'm glad I remembered when I saw Amy Howard there reminding me. So, happy birthday to you. So everyone, I think, probably is familiar with the Hans Christian Andersen story I referred to earlier of the emperor's new clothes. I always want to say the emperor with no clothes. About a conceited emperor who doesn't care about anything but looking good. And his vanity allows a couple of con men promising to make his wardrobe great again sell him a suit of clothes they say is so amazing that only an idiot wouldn't recognize it. The emperor can't see anything, but not wishing to look like an idiot, pretends to see the clothes and put them on. He then parades down the streets completely naked. And nobody else wants to look like an idiot either, so they all go along, pretending to ogle and awe and boast about how fine and magnificent his new clothes look. Eventually, however, an innocent child shouts, "The emperor has no clothes!" The emperor hears and realizes the kid is right, but doesn't want to appear even more idiotic than he already does, so he marches on, pretending that he's the most well-suited emperor ever. That's a play on words, isn't it? It's what you call equivocation in logic. We'll talk about that on Tuesday night. So that's obviously my own summary of the tale, and I'm probably overusing the word idiot a little. No, you can't use it often. Today, it's obviously a grave insult, but at the time that Andersen first told this story nearly 2 centuries ago, the term simply referred to those who were unfit for office. It comes from a Latin word meaning something like layperson or unskilled. An idiot in Andersen's time was someone who didn't have the credentials for their respective office. And since his tale is about a fabric that only those suited for their positions can see, I'm taking the liberty of saying what I often only think. Idiot. Andersen's tale is timeless, but does seem especially poignant today. Wouldn't you agree? In case you missed it earlier this week, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell came closer than ever to admitting his boss isn't suited for office. Our new president, he said, has not been in this line of work very long. McConnell was responding to Trump's recent tweet saying that he's disappointed the senator hasn't repealed Obamacare. But it was the rest of what McConnell said that made me chuckle, only to keep from being enraged. Did you guys catch this? He said, I think he had excessive expectations about how quickly things happen in the democratic process. Is he kidding us? The democratic process? This from the man who years ago said his sole responsibility was to see to it that the democratically elected President of the United States, Barack Obama, fail? That he not succeed? This from the man who refused to hold hearings for the democratically elected President of the United States Supreme Court nominee for over a year, and then to turn around and change the rules overnight to appoint or anoint their own candidate once they took the White House? Might I be the first in the crowd to shout, the senator has no clothes. But this isn't about the unfit emperor, or even the child brave enough or naive enough to tell the truth. It's about everyone else. It's about the crowd going along with the crowd, those caught up in the processional, in the processes, in the systems, and the beliefs they keep pretending are right, even though deep down they must know they are lies. Like the emperor who knows the child is right but is too proud to admit he's not suited for office because, in this case, he's not suited for anything at all. He's naked. His beliefs aren't based on empirical evidence but on pure imagination. His ideas aren't tied to sound premises. They're based on invisible threads tied to nothing factual. But the issue, again, isn't the naked emperor. It's everyone who decides to go along with him, to keep pretending that his lies are true even though they are entirely without substance. Take the global warming crisis that is upon us. Again, I choose my words carefully, so I don't call it a threat anymore, but a crisis. Because all the things climatologists began warning us years ago were going to happen, rising temperatures, melting glaciers, severe droughts, famines, fires, megastorms, higher sea levels, they're happening. I'm also one of the few people who still mostly says global warming instead of climate change. Here's why. Like many of you, I've been worried about this issue for decades and have been preaching about it since I started preaching again back in the 90s. Back when the national media refused to even acknowledge it. Do you remember those days? Things were clearly warming up back then, and the glaciers were already vanishing, but the most we ever heard was a happy local forecaster say, it's going to be another nice sunny day with temperatures well above average for this time of year. It wasn't until 2001 that I was astonished to see, and relieved to see a Time magazine cover entitled, in big letters, Global Warming, showing a picture of an egg frying in a skillet and the egg yolk looking like the planet Earth. A short time later, Newsweek did something similar, but those were just token articles, as it would still be several years before the media finally bucked the status quo and began regularly talking about what's happening. Also keep in mind that in 2000, Al Gore, when Al Gore was running for president, Owlman, as he was nicknamed by George Bush Sr., was widely lampooned for his belief in global warming. His conservative opponents called it a hoax and promoted the lie that scientists were largely divided on the subject. Just 4 years later, however, things had already grown so much worse that even George W., running for his second term in office, had to admit it was happening or risk looking like a naked emperor. So his party tweaked that same lie just a little, arguing instead that it's all part of a natural cycle and scientists disagree about its cause. Great to recycle lies, recycle, reuse, all that stuff. Meanwhile, those still clinging to the impossible, it's a hoax fabrication, love to scoff every time it snows or rains somewhere. Back in 2010, for example, when that nationwide blizzard deemed Snowmageddon, you remember that one? Went all the way across the country and particularly paralyzed the Northeast with record snowfall. Mitch McConnell looked out his D.C. office window and asked, "Where's Al Gore now?" And Senator Jim DeMint said, "It's going to keep snowing in D.C. until Al Gore cries uncle." I'm not sure what Al Gore was doing at the time, but I do hope he was someplace warm, enjoying his Grammy, his Oscar, and his Nobel Peace Prize. By the way, at the very same time, McConnell and DeMint, were making their quips. Snow had to be trucked into Vancouver for the Winter Olympics. Remember that? Same winter. February. Nevertheless, a lot of us good-hearted liberals felt responsible for what we considered a genuine misunderstanding. Oh, we never should have used the term global warming, we said. We should start using climate change instead. The term some thought would help explain excessive snow and rain, even though we're claiming the world is really warming up and drying up. My immediate reaction was to ask why, which is my first reaction to everything anyway. Firstly, the problem is global warming. The problem is global warming. That's what we're talking about. Climate change, which with its freak weather patterns, its blizzards and mega rainstorms, is the consequence of global warming, not the other way around. So why should we dumb down our language and waste valuable time, energy, and resources creating and promoting a new campaign for people intent on watching a naked emperor proceed through the streets, pretending he's well suited for the position? Why change our language for those who aren't going to deal with the reality, no matter what we say, when it is the reality that we must deal with? So that's why I still call it global warming, because I'm not willing to go along with the crowd and seriously talk about the naked emperor's imaginary clothes. And that's the point of the story, that everyone knows the emperor has no clothes, and nobody wants to look foolish by admitting it, so they just keep up the lie. The ridiculous claim that snow anywhere proves global warming is a hoax, even against all other empirical evidence and scientific agreement proving it, can't be taken any more seriously than Anderson's fairy tale characters pretending that there's something that they can't even see. Yet how easy is it for us to get caught up in the story even when we know it isn't true, and to continue using language that upholds the lie? So I work hard not to get caught up in the narratives that perpetuate our collective delusions. Today, the loudest kid shouting, "The emperor has no clothes," might just be attorney Brian Stevenson, author of the best-selling book Just Mercy and founder of the Equal Justice Initiative. Everywhere he speaks, Stevenson talks about the crucial importance of being honest by changing our misleading narratives. To stop talking about children, for example, as super predators, as an excuse to lock them up with adult criminals who immediately begin abusing them. And start talking about them as our kids again. To stop talking about drug addiction as a criminal matter and start talking about it as a personal and as a public health issue. To stop talking about making America great again and start talking about it as a post-genocidal nation, as he puts it, built on the eradication of millions of native peoples through famine and war and disease. To stop talking about blacks with a presumption of dangerousness and guilt and start talking about them as a people who have been systematically victimized and terrorized throughout a brutal history of slavery, segregation, Jim Crow, lynching, police brutality, the era of mass incarceration, a racist drug war, disenfranchisement, voter suppression, and poverty, all founded upon the lie that being white means being superior to everyone else. Certainly there have been some real gains since the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964, including the election of our nation's first African-American president just a decade ago. Overcoming such momentous barriers, however, leads many white people to believe that the significance of race has declined in the U.S., when what has mostly changed is the language we use about it. Except for those once cloistered white supremacists who, as we saw again just yesterday, have recently been emboldened by Trump's election and racist rhetoric, most whites no longer use racist language, overtly use racist language, nor even hold overtly racist thoughts. Yet when it comes to racialized outcomes, these gentler sentiments have translated into few real changes in our society. Sociologist Eduardo Bonilla Silva, another whistleblower who doesn't mind shouting, "The emperor has no clothes," contends that since the 1960s, a new racial structure, a new racism for short, has emerged that accounts for the persistence of racial inequality. In the new racism, he says, racist discourse is covert. Racist politics are covert. Racist systems are covert. Jim Crow laws are covert. And the myth of reverse racism against whites has emerged. But since the 1960s, the practical reality is that little has changed. Today, Bonilla Silva says blacks are more segregated than any other racial or ethnic group. The segregation of blacks in American neighborhoods, for instance, is 70% in the South and 80% in the North. They're still denied available housing 35 to 75% of the time, are denied home loans twice as often as whites, and are systematically directed to black neighborhoods. In education, schools with high percentages of black students are in insufficient buildings, are overcrowded, don't have enough textbooks or supplies, lack equipment and technology, and pay their teachers and staff less than other schools do. When it comes to higher education, fewer black students even enroll in, and even less complete college. And according to FBI statistics, campuses are the third most common venue for hate crimes. African Americans have made significant gains in politics since the 1960s. Including currently 46 members of Congress and 3 senators. Although so far, it hasn't translated into meaningful changes in our schools, in our neighborhoods, or on our streets. Since the rise of the new Jim Crow in the 1970s, by which I mean the drug war and the era of mass incarceration, when, as Bonilla Silva says, the police became the primary agent of social control of blacks, half of those killed by on-duty police officers are black, as are half of those lawfully imprisoned and half of those lawfully executed, though they represent only about 12% of the general population. And I don't need to continue. You get the point. No matter how much our society has deracialized its language, our systemic racist structures remain in place. So when it comes to racism, we can ogle and we can awe about all the progress we've made, but the emperor has no clothes. These are just two examples of what I'm trying to get at today, that it's not enough to shift our language a little to accommodate the same old lies. It's not enough to say climate change instead of global warming, or to rid ourselves of racist ideas and language if we don't also end our racist structures and systems. This is what Dr. King was getting at when he said, "It may be true that the law cannot change the heart, but it can restrain the heartless." He wasn't involved in the civil rights movement to change racist minds, but to change racist systems. He wasn't trying to control what racists say, but to protect others from what racists do. This is why today I'm so troubled by the culture of political correctness coming from my own peeps on the left. Because PC has no clothes. It promotes a culture of saying the right things when what we need is a culture of doing the right things. When what we need is to establish new social structures and new systems that allow others to hold racist opinions, even to express them if they must, but never to act upon them. There are other imperial parades on our streets today. The latest is based on the myth of the good old days. Nostalgia, I'm afraid, paints a far better past than has ever existed. People want to make America great again, but when was it ever great to begin with? During the worst Holocaust? How's that for changing the narrative? During the worst Holocaust ever, leading to the genocide of 20 million indigenous people? During the 250 years of slavery? In the following century of segregation, Jim Crow, and racial terrorism? Was it during the period of hate and exploitation of immigrants, of Chinese immigrants and Irish immigrants, Italian immigrants, Latino immigrants, and on and on? Was it during the Japanese internment camps, during women's suffrage, during the Great Depression, during the McCarthy era, Vietnam, the Cold War, trickle-down economics, the drug war, during the concentration of wealth into the hands of just a few? When were those good old days? And for who? The emperor has no clothes. Today the emperor parades down our streets chanting, "Obamacare is a disaster." But that emperor has no clothes either. The Affordable Health Care Act may not be perfect, mostly because its opponents have prevented it from being better. But it has still somehow enabled millions who were once without it to have health care, and if it goes away, will cause them to lose it. Today, the emperor parades down our streets chanting, "Protecting the environment destroys jobs." But the emperor has no clothes. Whether it's the mechanization of coal extraction that's made thousands of coal mining jobs obsolete and ruined local communities and businesses by cutting the tops off their mountains, or destroying the natural environments of communities that once created hundreds of thousands of tourist jobs, it has always been environmental degradation that destroys jobs. And that shifts the expense of corporate irresponsibility onto the backs of those who do work, who are fortunate enough to have jobs. Today, as China and India are taking the lead in innovative green technology and will benefit most from the emerging green economy, U.S. protectionism is vowing to prop up the dirty carbon-based economy as long as possible, working against innovation and against the booming green job market, all based on a lie that has never been true. The emperor has no clothes. Today, the emperor parades down our streets, chanting, "The government is the problem." But the emperor has no clothes. Those chanting along with him, ogling and awing over his spectacles, say government is the problem when it comes to regulating industries that endanger us all and force taxpayers to pay the price of their irresponsibility. But when it comes to genuine freedom, to who you choose to love, or where you use the restroom, or what you smoke, or whether or not you can vote, or keep your drinking water safe, or what you can protest, or whether or not Florida has the right to recount its votes, then they're all for big government. The emperor has no clothes. Today, the emperor marches down our streets pompously chanting the sanctity of life. But the emperor has no clothes. For it's one thing to grandstand about the unborn, but when these same voices are silent in the wake of war and capital punishment and the daily deaths of hundreds around the world because of our nation's military actions, or the deaths of thousands around the world because of floods and famines related to global warming, the emperor has no clothes. Today, the emperor parades down our streets chanting, "Ours is a Christian nation." But the emperor has no clothes unless being a Christian nation means exploiting others, taking as much for yourself as possible, waging war, and demonizing those you disagree with. But if Christianity is about loving our neighbors, forgiving our enemies, welcoming strangers, caring for the poor, feeding the hungry, educating children, including the outcast, freeing the captives, and healing the sick, then ours most certainly is not, nor ever has been, a Christian nation. The emperor has no clothes. These are just some of the lies we get caught up in. And I'm sure there are others I'm so caught up in I don't even know it. But the point here is that sometimes we make the mistake of joining the crowd by trying to have serious conversations about lies, when what the crowd really needs is a prophetic voice that shouts, "The emperor has no clothes." The solution to problems like these, to global warming and racism and income inequality and healthcare, are not rhetorical solutions. It's more than just changing our language. It's more than learning the politically correct way of speaking, unless, as Stevenson says, we're brave enough to change the entire narrative. To admit the stories we've been telling ourselves are complete fabrications, and that we all know the emperor is really naked, that there's no substance there, there's no facts supporting our collective delusions. Talk is cheap. Saying the right thing is easy. Having the right frames and the right faith makes us feel justified in what we say. But faith without works is still dead. Real change, real transformation, a genuine end to racism in our nation, stopping global warming, building an economy that works for everyone, and bringing an end to war means changing what we do. It means changing the status quo. It means backing away from the crowd and finally admitting the emperor has no clothes. Thank you.
Make us aware of the truth and beauty around us, the truth and beauty within us, and the truth and beauty we can transform into the world. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.